Thank you so much for joining me in this 3-part training where we're going to be looking at flexibility, strength, and then putting the two together and how they can really work magic not only on your physical body, which is why we're here, right, but our mental body as well. So just a couple things before we get into our practice today, and these things I really want you to remember because they are key to gaining flexibility and strength. And the first thing is that consistency is key. Even if that is only 5 to 10 minutes a day, just a quick short practice, and I'm going to give you some things to work with today that you can then keep practicing daily to really see results. The second thing is make sure you warm up your body. Now, when we go into yoga, yoga can start off slow. So it's like you're warming up your body before you get into like the big stretches anyway. But one really good thing to do is to even just like dance or jog on the spot, just do something to get your body moving and to warm up those muscles before we actually begin the practice. So if you do only have, say, 5-10 minutes a day and you're doing a very quick practice, just have a quick jog on the spot just to warm up the muscles before you start actually stretching. The third thing is to be mindful of your own body, okay? So as we go through these stretches, if anything doesn't feel right, please stop what you're doing. If you get any pain, then stop. We want a little bit of discomfort because we are stretching the muscles and strengthening them, and we're going to want to be able to feel that difference, okay? If you are stretching and you're not feeling anything, you're not going to be improving anything, okay? Nothing's going to change. It's going to be uncomfortable as we stretch, but we just don't want any pain or anything that doesn't feel right to you. You know your own body. If something feels off, don't do it, okay? Come out of the pose, listen to your body, maybe take a different variation. The next thing is to use props if you need them, okay? So there's yoga blocks, there's straps, there's all these things to really help your practice. You don't have to use them, by all means, feel free not to, but they can make getting into the poses a little bit easier, and sometimes you can actually feel a deeper stretch while using the props. So don't feel like if you use the props you're too beginner or anything like that. I've heard all the excuses about using props. Honestly, they help me get a deeper stretch, okay? So feel free to use them if you feel like you need them. And the final thing is patience. We are taking these stretches nice and slow, and I want you to really focus on your breath, okay? So it's not something that we get into the stretch and then it's like, right, what's the next stretch? What's the next stretch? You need to relax in the stretch. You need to deep breathe, okay? So big inhale, big exhale, and then we carry on. Right, I think we're ready for the practice, so let's get to it. Okay, so today we are going to be focusing on forward folds. Now, when we focus on flexibility, there are 3 main areas that we want to focus on. This is forward folds because you are lengthening the whole of the back body. It's back bends because we're lengthening the whole of the front body. And then it's hip openings because we want to get those middle splits eventually, right? So they're the 3 main areas that we need to focus on for flexibility. I can't possibly show you all of those today because it can take hours. So I'm going to give you a quick practice for the forward fold, okay? So improving your forward fold flexibility, touching those toes. So the first thing that we're going to do today is actually something a little bit different, and it's called a toe stretch. If you'd like to come down onto the ground, I always like to put one leg out in front and then the other on top of the thigh. You can do this however you'd like, but as long as you can reach one of your feet, right? You're going to use your fingers and place them in between your toes. So this is going to feel so awkward. You're going to wiggle your toes to get your fingers as close to like where the toe starts as you can. Same thing with your fingers. You're also going to wiggle them up and get them as high up as you can. So the aim is to get like the creases of your toes and your fingers together. It's going to be very tricky to start with for some people, and eventually the more you do this, the more kind of flexible this gets and the easier it becomes. But get them down as far as you can until it feels awkward, right? Then we're going to stay here. We're going to take a big inhale. As you exhale, you're going to tense your fingers and your hands as if you're squeezing hands with your toes. Inhale, release. Big exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. Now just keep going with this for a second. Now the reason that we're doing this is because when we are forward folding and we're trying to touch those toes, a lot of the times you can feel that right in the hamstrings. But sometimes it isn't just the hamstrings that are tight. Sometimes it's the other body parts that are connected to your hamstrings as well. And that even includes the toes, because if your feet are tight, it's going to be pulling on your calf muscle, which then pulls on your hamstring. So we do need to work the whole body. And I think this is the best tip that I ever learned is, you know, especially with forward folds and touching your toes, it isn't just the hamstring we need to work on. It is everything else around there. So just notice now if your fingers and your toes have eased off a bit. Hopefully they have. And then wiggle your toes down again. Hold it. Squeeze those fingers and those toes. Squeeze them together. Release, release those fingers. Oh, give it all a bit of a wiggle, and we'll switch to the other side. So the other leg goes long. This foot comes in. I'm just going to let Millie out. I think she wants to go for a little wander. Go on then. Go on then. She can hear the doggies barking, I think that is. Okay, so the other leg goes out. Other foot in. Use your fingers and your toes. Wiggle them down. And again, you might find that one side feels a lot easier than the other as well. Millie, shush. So wiggle those fingers, wiggle those toes. Wiggle them as far down as you can. Hold. Let's take a big inhale. Exhale, squeeze them all together. Squeeze your fingers. Squeeze your toes. Big inhale, release. Exhale, squeeze. Maybe again, just like wiggle them down. See if you can get them down any further. Inhale, release. Exhale, squeeze. And just notice as you're doing this side now, keep going with that for a moment, how your other foot feels. Hopefully your toes are feeling nice and loose and relaxed here. And they might even look more spread out. Because what tends to happen as well is we're constantly wearing shoes, right? If we go out anywhere, we're wearing shoes. And it pushes our toes together, and that's not natural. So that tends to tighten the feet, which then ends up tightening the legs as well. Okay, one more time. Big squeeze for those fingers and those toes. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And release. Release those fingers. Give them all a little bit of a wiggle. Well done. Okay, we're going to roll over now onto all fours. So shoulders above the wrists. Hips above the knees. Toes together, knees wide. Sit your hips back towards your heels. Lengthen your arms out. Drop your head down to the ground. And you might recognize this one as child's pose. Just take a big inhale here. And as you exhale, imagine your chest getting closer to the ground. Try to release your body down as much as possible. And notice what's happening here. Your belly is really close to your thighs, right? And as we're forward folding, that's what we want. We want your thighs close to your belly so that you can reach those toes. So just release everything down here. Long inhales, long exhales. And even try to sigh as well, because what happens with our breath, this is why our breath is so important, especially in yoga and stretching, is every time we exhale, we're sending that signal to the body to relax. We're sending that signal that you're safe, that it's okay to release. And that is where we are going to see those flexibility gains. Okay, so a couple more breaths here. And don't worry if your bum is nowhere near your heels as well here. Eventually, they will get closer. And then slowly lift the head. Plant the hands, stretch your fingers nice and wide. Come up onto your hands, tuck your toes under. Bring your hips up for downward facing dog. Now in your down dog, keep a bend in the knees. Keep that bend. Really push your chest backwards. Try and get a really nice straight line from your wrists all the way to your hips. Imagine your hips going high. Okay, so imagine sticking your bum out, and that's going to give you a nice lengthened spine. Now from here, straighten the right leg. Keep the left leg bent. Really dig that right heel down towards the ground. Take long inhales and exhales, and you're still pushing your chest backwards. Rebend the right, straighten the left, push your left heel down towards the ground. Probably feeling that now all through the calf and the hamstring. Keep pushing that chest backwards. What tends to happen is if you are a bit tight, your back will try to round. Really try to push your chest back. Rebend the left, straighten the right. Rebend the right, straighten the left. Bend both knees, look towards the top of your mat. Take little tiny walks and come into a forward fold. So feet are going to come hips distance, slight bend off the knees, lengthen through the spine and fold over here. Release the hands. Now bend your knees as much as you can so that your thighs are actually touching your belly. Okay, so that might be folded over quite a bit. Shake your head yes or no just to release that neck. And then grab hold of opposite elbows and gently just rock side to side. And just notice here how close you are to your toes. Obviously our knees are bent, but just notice that. Okay, yoga is also all about noticing your own body. Release those hands down, straighten those legs. Notice where you are here in touching your toes. Hopefully you are quite a bit closer after that stretching that we've already done. Keep your legs straight, get your upper body loose and slowly roll up through the body. So rolling up, arms dangle, head is the last thing to come up. Roll your head up, roll your shoulders back, arms down by the sides. Okay, from here we're going to step our feet nice and wide, heels on your mat and toes off your mat. If you don't have a mat, it's just wider than hips distance. You're going to slightly bend the knees and we're going to fold forward, just roll back down. Keep a nice bend in the knees now and we are going to bounce it out. Okay, now this is called gorilla pose. We are literally just going to bounce up and down, maybe bounce over your left foot, over your right foot, maybe just like wiggle side to side, have a little like, I don't know, figure 8 kind of motion. Just literally bounce up and down for a moment. Bounce it out, bounce it out. So what's happening here is we're actually, every time we bounce, your body weight is pulling yourself down and you're stretching more of those hamstrings. So it's a little bit more of an active stretch. So a really great way to gain flexibility. Okay, now find a pause, hands to the ground, heel turn those feet back to hips distance. Keep a bend in those knees just so that your fingertips are flat on the ground. Pick up your right foot, step it all the way to the back of the mat, lower your right leg. Okay, so we're in our low lunge. Now this is where you can have blocks, okay? If the floor seems too far away, grab those blocks, come up a little bit higher. Now from here, we're going to shift those hips backwards, start to lengthen that left leg, toes point up towards the ceiling. Okay? Again, blocks can come in really handy here. Grab those blocks if you need it. Now imagine here, you can keep this knee bent by the way, it doesn't have to be straight, but imagine here, you can stick your bum out. Already you might have felt that like stretch even more down that back hamstring. Imagine that your belly button is trying to touch your thigh rather than your head. And just do that a second actually. Stick your bum out, bring your belly button down, look towards your toes, and then tuck the tailbone, lift that belly button away and bring your head to your knee. You might get closer, but there's less of a stretch, right? So we want to be feeling that stretch. So stick that bum out, bring that belly button down, look towards those toes. Take a big inhale and exhale here. Again, big inhale and exhale. One more. Rebend back into that right knee, left knee even. Hands either side, take your left knee back to meet the right, and then we're going to step the right foot up to in between the hands. Okay, so low lunge on the other side. Again, grab those blocks if you need them. Breathe here. And then shift those hips back, start to straighten that right leg, toes pointing up towards the ceiling. Again, feel free to keep a bend in that right knee. And let's just try that difference again. So stick your bum out, bring your belly button down, look towards your toe. Notice that stretch, right? Notice how it feels. Doesn't matter what it looks like, notice how it feels. Now tuck the tailbone, lift your belly button up and bring your head to your knee. It's so easy to think that somebody is more flexible because they are actually doing the pose slightly wrong, okay? And I say slightly wrong, trying to get further, but they're not actually using much of that muscle, right? Because now, stick your bum out, bring that belly button down, look towards your toes. A much deeper stretch, but I'm higher up. 3 deep breaths here. Big inhales and exhale. And just notice here as well as you exhale, exhale through the mouth. And notice how that really softens the muscles even more. Gets your body to relax even more. And then let's rebend into that right knee, plant the hands, bring that right knee back to meet the left. Maybe just wiggle the hips side to side, kind of lengthen that out, loosen it out a bit. Wiggle them around in a circle. And we're gonna come down onto our backs now. So come all the way down, hug those knees in. Let's plant the left foot flat on the ground. Right leg is going to come up towards the ceiling. Now interlace your fingers behind your right thigh. Flex your right foot. And then pull that in towards you until you feel a slight stretch. You can keep a slight bend of the knee here. Just go until you feel that slight stretch. Hold it. Release here. Okay, so long inhales, long exhales. Embrace the shakes if you have the shakes going on. Just a couple breaths. And now I'd like you to point your toes and flex your toes. So point and flex, point and flex. So sometimes it's not actually just the muscles that we need to stretch out for flexibility. It's also the tendons and the nerves and everything else in between, all the fascia. Just circle your ankle now one way. So doing little movements like this while the big muscles are stretched can be really, really helpful. Just circle your ankle the other way. And now I'd like you to take a big inhale. Imagine kicking away that ceiling. Lengthen your leg as much as possible. Then as you exhale, pull that leg towards you. Inhale, kick. Your leg might move slightly further away. That's fine. Exhale, pull. Now you're keeping the leg straight. Inhale, kick. Exhale, pull. So a little bit of strengthening as well here. Inhale, kick. Exhale, pull. One more. Inhale, kick. Exhale, pull. Hold it. Hold it. Breathe. 3 long, deep breaths here. Should be feeling this quite a bit. We've activated the muscles. We've stretched out everything around it. Deep breaths. And release that leg. Plant the foot flat on the ground. Just windscreen wiper the knees to drop them to the right, to the left. Should be feeling that now in the right leg. So let's move on to the other. So let's keep the right foot flat on the ground. Left leg comes up. Grab behind that thigh. Keep that slight bend in the knee to start with. Flex your foot. Pull that leg towards you. Take 3 long, deep breaths here. Remember, if you do find it a little bit difficult, if the stretch is feeling quite a lot, breathe through that mouth. Try to relax the muscles as much as possible. Tell your body it's safe, because sometimes it's not actually the muscle itself, and it's our brain. It's our brain trying to keep you safe. And then let's point the toes, flex, point and flex, point and flex, point and flex, and then take some circles one way. Keep pulling that leg towards you. Notice how this is feeling in your legs. Notice if one side feels different than the other. Circle your ankle the other way. And when I say notice, it's just so that we can notice our bodies better, right? It's just so we can get to know ourselves. It's nothing to change. It doesn't mean anything. Okay, let's kick that ceiling away. Straighten that leg as much as possible. Exhale, pull it towards you. Inhale, kick. Exhale, pull. Inhale, kick. You might notice that one side is harder to do than the other. Exhale, pull. Inhale, kick. Exhale, pull. Inhale, kick. Embrace the shakes. Exhale, pull. Hold it for 3 deep breaths. Keep that foot flexed. Bend that knee. Loosen those muscles. Plant that foot down. Windscreen open the legs. Side to side. Hug those knees in. Grab behind the thighs. Gently rock and roll backwards and forwards down the spine until you come up to seated. Legs out in front. Feet are going to be hips distance. Inhale the hands up. Exhale, fold forward, flex those feet, toes are coming towards you. Just notice here whereabouts you can touch your toes. Big inhale, big exhale. Roll yourself back up. And that is our little practice for today. So hopefully you notice the different things that we've done in today's class. Now there are so many more things that you can do to really improve your forward fold flexibility. And also you can use all of these ways in the other movements as well, the back bending and the hip opening. So there's loads of different ways to gain flexibility. I really hope that you have seen a difference in today's class. I'm hoping that you can feel this, and if you would like to know more about this, obviously I can't teach you all of this in this short class today, but I am opening the doors to Fledgling Yogi, which is my signature course, which is all about gaining flexibility and strength and learning the 5 main movements that is going to improve your entire yoga practice. Forward folds, which is what we've done today, a tiny snippet of it, back bends, hip openings, arm balancing and inversions, so crow pose and headstand. So if they are things that you are interested in and that you would like to really improve, I mean, you've seen the snippet today of what we can do in 10 minutes with forward folding flexibility. Imagine what you can do with 5 weeks worth of tips and tricks, right? So if you are interested, there will be a link somewhere on this page that you can click to sign up. But don't forget to turn up to part 2 and part 3 of this training, because part 2 we're going to be looking at strength and how that can improve your yoga practice and also improve your flexibility. And then day 3 we're going to be putting it all together. So I look forward to seeing you on day 2.